Welcome back to Shire Travels. In this one, I'm going to be showing you the tracks that we took to get into Wonnangatta Station. We were towing our 14-foot hybrid caravan and we found what we consider the easiest way to get in if you are towing. Now, if you Google directions for Wonnangatta Station, it will likely show you the way to get in from the south. This is a pretty much two-wheel drive track all the way up to Howitt Plains, and then the Zeka Spur track, which is a four-wheel drive track down into the station. This wasn't going to work for us because we knew it would be too steep, so we decided to come in from the north and head up via Myrtleford. Now, Tom took the reins researching this one, finding the best route in. He bought a couple of maps for it and took the time to plan out our route. So I'll be showing you every track that we went down from when we left Myrtleford and what the track looks like. We made it through it pretty successfully. We did have a little bit of damage to the van, but nothing too bad. It was mainly just the rock sliders that copped it. And overall, we'd say it was a success. Now, we did this trip on the weekend of Melbourne Cup weekend. We left on the Thursday evening, stayed at our friend's place near Wonnangatta, and then left early Friday morning. The last track down into Wonnangatta Station is seasonally closed, and this is the first weekend it had opened, so we didn't have that much information on what the track was going to be like. Now, if you're coming in from the north, Myrtleford will be your last stop. They have 3 service stations there, and they also have some cafes, shops, toilets. It's a really good place to stock up before you head into Wonnangatta. And the road you want to take out of Myrtleford is the Buffalo River Road. This road is bitumen and you get to cross the Lake Buffalo Dam wall, which is quite interesting to see, and it was absolutely pumping when we crossed over. Also, just to quickly note that some of this footage at the start is filmed through what I consider to be quite a dirty windscreen of the car. Rest assured, it does get a little bit better later on. Now, as you carry along Buffalo River Road, it will eventually turn into Abbeyards Road. You can see it's just after this intersection here. We pulled off at a random campsite along Abbeyards Road to air down. Tom put £20 in the car and £25 in the van. Another thing just to quickly note on this video is I have added chapters in the description. So if you want to find a particular track that we went down to have a look at, or if you want to skip ahead, make sure you check in the description and you can find all the timestamps. Now, for the most part, Abbeyards Road is unsealed. In saying that, it is two-wheel drive friendly. We saw quite a few two-wheel drives and on-road vans in campsites near there. The road was actually in really good condition, hardly any potholes or corrugations. The next turn we took was onto East Buffalo Road. There is West Buffalo Track that you can see there, however it is much steeper. For towing, East Buffalo Road is the better option. This road was very similar to the Abbeyards Road. It was in good condition and you could easily drive a two-wheel drive along there. Now, when you get to this turning to Selwyn Track, the East Buffalo Road turns into East Riley Road. This track is a little bit narrower and a bit steeper than the other tracks that we've been on previously, but all in all, it wasn't too bad. There were still some places where it was quite wide. You could easily get another car past. This is just showing where East Riley Road turns quite sharply to the right. And then at this intersection here, where there for some reason is a symbol for an airport, you go onto the Wonnangatta Track. Now, this is a gated track, so it's seasonally closed during winter. So you'll head through the gates and start heading down. This here was probably one of the sharpest switchbacks that's on the track. For us, it was fine. We have a 14-foot van and we made it round no problem. Another thing that I should have probably noted at the start is that a lot of this footage is sped up in double time. The reason for doing that is to make it a shorter video. Half an hour is a bit more manageable than 1 hour. Just thought I'd note this in case anyone thought that we may be going a bit fast. I think on average we would have been doing about 40 to 50 kilometers an hour, if that. It was pretty slow going. So from Myrtleford to get all the way into our campsite in the station, it was about 2.5 to 3 hours. We do have young children though, so we did stop quite regularly. And obviously we are towing. Now, just to touch on the towing a bit more, people might think that we were a bit crazy to try and take our caravan in there. Most people who go in there, if they are towing, they'll be taking camper trailers or maybe even dirt bikes on trailers. We did quite a lot of preparation for this trip. One thing we did was we swapped out our all-terrain tyres for a set of mud terrains. This was to give us as much grip as possible. We knew there would be a very steep section of the track, and we also knew that we would be very heavy. We would probably be the heaviest that we've ever been in the car and van. We were heading away for 5 nights. We're completely off grid, off water. So we had the water tanks full, a lot of food, fuel on the roof of the car as well. So we knew we were going to be heavy, wanted to give ourselves the best grip possible. Another thing Tom did was also replace the brake pads in the car to make sure we had enough stopping ability as possible. Other things we did for heading into Wonnangatta, so we decided to travel with someone else. So we traveled with Tom's brother and his camper trailer. We knew that if he had any issues at any point on the track trying to get in, that would be the point where we would probably turn around. That's another thing that we did. We found some campsites that weren't in the station, were just outside. So if at any point we thought it was too difficult, that we weren't going to be able to get in, we'd just camp somewhere else and then day trip in. We also kept a really keen eye on the weather. Heading in, we thought we'd probably be okay. There wasn't much rain forecast at all, and we had a tiny amount on the way in. It really didn't make any difference to the track. On the way out, however, we did have to race the rain. I'll show you at the end just how wet it was. And finally, one of the last things that we did was we decided to head in as early as possible in the morning. We did this trip on the Melbourne Cup public holiday weekend, so we left on the Friday morning. And we did this because we knew that we would be very unlikely to meet a car coming in the other direction. While there were some places that we could easily pass another car, it just would take that little bit of stress out. It would also be less likely that we would have people stuck behind us. It can be really annoying if you're driving on a normal road stuck behind a caravan. The last thing that we'd want to do is have people being held up behind us because we're towing our caravan on a four-wheel drive track. And we found that that worked really well. We didn't meet another car coming in the opposite direction at all. On the way out, it was the same case. And it was only when we got to the very end of the track that we had a couple of cars behind us, and they had to wait about 30 seconds while we pulled over to let them past. The Wonnangatta Track, which is the last track to get into the station, I'd say is more suitable for four-wheel drives. You probably could try and get a two-wheel drive down there if you really wanted to, but some of the washouts are quite steep and you do need quite a bit of clearance. You've also got to drive through a river at the end. Now, as I've mentioned, our van is 14 foot. All up, I think the van was weighing about 2.5 ton. I definitely would not recommend taking anything bigger in. We did scrape our rock sliders on the van, and the grey water tank and our step at the front also took a little bit of a beating. It really wasn't anything too bad, and I've got some footage of all the scrapes and bumps that the van sustained. But as I said, I definitely wouldn't take anything bigger than that in there in terms of length. And also ground clearance is something that you need to watch out for as well. The washouts that you've got to go up and over when you're heading up and down the last section of this track are really steep. If you took anything bigger in, you would absolutely destroy the back of your van. Potentially, or depending on what car you're towing with, you could knock the back of the car, you could scrape the A-frame. There's all sorts of things that could potentially go wrong. So I'm just putting it out there as a bit of a disclaimer. We were okay in our 14-foot van, but as I said, wouldn't recommend anything bigger than that. I also want to recommend anything heavier. 2.5 ton was quite heavy for us. There was a couple of sections where we did lose slight traction on the wheels, managed to get going again. But yeah, just a word of warning if you're watching this, if you have a big caravan and think, yep, I'm going to try and do this, would not recommend it. If, however, you have a smaller caravan, a little hybrid like ours, or a camper trailer, it is perfectly manageable. Pretty much everyone else that we saw towing in there had camper trailers. And if you do have a camper trailer, you have a few different options to head in and out. A few people that we were camping with decided to head out on Zeka Spur track. This would just be too steep for us, but you have a few different options. Now we're going to get to what would be the most difficult part of the track. As you can see here, it's a ridge that you have to go up and over. Then when you get to the bottom, you cross the river and you are in Wonnangatta Station. This is where we did get a few scrapes on the rock sliders of the van. Our step on the front also knocked into the ground a couple of times, but it was fine. Now, I didn't get out the car and film it too much, but the one time that I did was where we actually hit the ground the worst. I'll just let it play and you can hear it in all its glory. The big crunch is just the front of the water tank, pretty much just bottoming out on the gravel. We stopped and gave it a quick look over, but there really wasn't any damage. When we did stop at camp eventually, we found that the pipe coming off the grey water tank was loose. However, it did appear that it was never actually glued on, so how it was staying there anyway, I don't know. We'll just glue it back on. final obstacle on this track is crossing the river. It was only about 500 mil deep, I'd say. It really wasn't an issue for us. We didn't have any problems with getting the van across either. There was no water that came up too high. As you can see in the background here, there's a couple of cars. They were the only other people that we saw on the track that day. Once into the station, the road is in great condition. You do have to cross this river, which is called Dry River. Tom said he has done it in the past and it's been bonnet deep. For us, it was only about 300 mil deep. It was absolutely fine, but you do have to cross it to get into that side of the station. This was a perfect opportunity to get the drone out and have a look down the valley, and it was absolutely beautiful. This also helped us scout out a couple of campsites, and we found one here right next to the river. Now you can pretty much camp anywhere along the river here. It's completely free, you don't need to book. We decided to set ourselves up just opposite the cemetery and down from the homestead. This was a really good spot because we also had access to a drop toilet, which was very handy. Apart from that, there are no other facilities. This is a bit of a damage report from the way in. As you can see here, this is the right-hand rock slider. We scraped off the paint there and it's a little bit bent. The other thing we found was with the angles that we were taking going up and down the washouts, water was coming out of the water infill point. It really wasn't too much, but it was just interesting to see the crazy angles that we were getting. The other thing I found when I popped the kitchen hatch was a thin layer of dust. A better rubber seal and tightening up the handles on the kitchen hatch probably would have helped that. It was good though, the inside of the van didn't have any dust in it at all. And this back stabilizer just copped a little bit of a scrape and had a bit of mud in the mechanism, but it was fine. In the next video, I'm going to take you through everything that we got up to at Wonnangatta Station. We drove some of Crooked River Track, we explored the Wonnangatta Valley, and we also drove up Zeka Spur Track too. But for now, I'm just going to show you the way out. This time we were racing the rain. We knew there was quite a bit of rain coming, so we really wanted to get up and over that first steep section of track because we knew it was going to be the most difficult. We left in the middle of the day, and this was probably a good thing because every other campsite around us cleared out pretty early. Once again, this meant that we didn't have anyone coming in the opposite direction, and we also didn't have anyone stuck behind us. We felt more confident on the way out. Obviously, we had already done the track in, but we were a fair bit lighter as well. The caravan probably would have been about 300 kilos lighter. We had dumped any water that we had left, and we had eaten all our food and drank a fair bit of alcohol, so we're probably about 300 kilos lighter. might be able to see here in this video the trailer plug just dragging along the floor. As we went over one of the washouts, it did just get popped out. It wasn't damaged though. This footage showing the caravan towing behind just goes to show how close that the caravan did get when we went up and over those washouts. Yes, a couple of times the back did scrape. You can see at the front there's probably about 100mm clearance. Once we got up and over that ridge, just did a quick walk around of the caravan, just showing here where the grey water tank copped a bit of a hit. If we were really keen on doing these type of tracks often, which I don't think we will, we could always put an angled bash plate on there just to help it going up and over those sorts of washouts. But this is by far the most extreme track that we will ever do. The left-hand rock slider also copped a bit of a beating, is a bit dented. With those, we can just unscrew them, sand them back, paint them, and then put them back on, so hopefully they don't get too rusty. As we've done the most difficult part of the track, we weren't too worried when it started to rain a bit heavier. I'll just show you screenshots here of the tracks out. So from Wonnangatta Track, you're heading onto East Riley Road. This then becomes East Buffalo Road. You eventually turn right onto Abbeyards Road. And then this turns into the Buffalo River Road, which heads into Myrtleford. As we were driving along Abbeyards Road, it started to rain really heavily, and actually this was the scariest point of the trip. At one point, just going around a corner with the car and the van, it slipped quite badly. Just something to keep in mind, on that road it can get quite slippery. Now, all up heading from Melbourne, it took us about 8 hours to get into Wonnangatta. Heading back out, it was about 8 or 9. But as I said, we did take quite regular stops, also towing, and we did stop to air down and then air back up. In the next video, I'll be showing you all the places that we visited while we were staying in Wonnangatta. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.